Hi, Maddie. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. So we've got Maddie here, Madison, and she's a WOTMama. And I
Mhm.
first spoke to Madison 2.5 years ago with her first little boy, who's now 2.5. And we spoke when he was 5 months old, and you had great success with him, didn't you?
Yeah, so he was wild at when we got to the point where we were like extremely exhausted. He was waking up like every hour through the night, and then we were like, enough is enough. So then we
Mm.
called you, and then I think on day 3 or 4, he started sleeping through the night.
Wow. So that was great. Great
Yeah.
results. And
Yes.
then you had little Sienna, who is now 4.5 months old. And I was booked in to come and do a home visit with you, and contracted this nasty flu that's going around the day before. So didn't have a chance to come to your house to help you out, but we did a Zoom consult
Yeah.
3 weeks ago, because Sienna was unsettled and not sleeping. So, how are things going now?
So much better. So she's doing 3 long naps a day. She does like pretty much 2 hour, 2 hour, sometimes another 2 hour or an hour and a half. And then she'll sleep from like around 6:30, and then she'll have a dream feed at 10, and she'll sleep through till about 7 a.m.
Beautiful.
So it's
And
very,
do you put her into bed, or like you're
yeah.
following the WOTBaby routine?
Yeah, so I
So you're
pretty much
giving-
follow it to a T now. She goes, I give her a quick cuddle and a burp and change a nappy and everything. Then I lay her down awake. I give her a quick pat and a shush, and then say it's time for sleep and walk out, and she's awake. And then she just puts herself to sleep now. So
That's awesome. Does she cry or whinge before she goes to
um,
sleep?
sometimes if I've just like sort of missed that window of time, like
Sure.
if I've just gone over it, sometimes she's a little bit whingy, but maybe for like 5 minutes, and then she'll just sort of go to drift off to sleep.
That's awesome. So you can really notice now through the routine,
Yeah.
you're aware of when she gets overtired
Yes. Yeah.
and she needs that little bit more winding down to go to sleep.
Yeah.
Would you say that that's what's happening? It just takes
Yeah.
a little longer. She's a little louder.
Yeah. She's not like screaming or anything, but she's sort of just a bit like, oh, I'm a bit not as settled. So she'll just toss and turn and she'll make whingy noises, but then I just
Yeah.
leave her and she'll just get herself to sleep.
Awesome. And is she obviously still swaddling her?
No, she's arms out now. She started rolling maybe
Wow.
a week or two ago, and I
An
just
early roller.
yeah, she's very early. And then so we put her in arms out straight away. We just did it both arms straight away. Um, and she the first night she was a little bit like unsettled, but she's been fine ever since. I think she actually likes it more because she seems to be a tummy sleeper.
Right. Okay. So she just flips straight onto her tummy when she's going off to sleep.
As I put her
Yes.
down, she just flips.
Yeah, I kind of find that once they get to that stage around 5 months of age and they can comfortably roll onto their tummy, they sleep better, right?
Yeah, she's. I feel like she goes straight to sleep as soon as she's on her tummy. Her eyes just shut and she goes straight to
So
sleep.
they use that as like a settling tool, I think, and they
Mhm.
feel really grounded on the mattress. So of course we
Yeah,
want them to be rolling when when they're old enough and
yeah,
strong enough to lift, push their hands up and move their head from side to side.
yeah.
And yeah, and keep them safe by letting their arms out. So that's awesome. So
Yeah.
you started the settling guidance 3 weeks ago, and she
Mhm.
was swaddled at that time.
Yeah, she was swaddled then.
Okay, and so did you swaddle her for about a week?
It would have been just over a week, I think. And then she started doing the flip. So I just took her straight out because she had the barriers next to her as well.
Are
Um,
there sleep positioners?
yeah, and then she was
Yeah.
wiggling out of that and trying to flip onto her front. So we just got rid of all of it.
Yeah, at around 4 months, they really start to move around the cot, don't
Yeah,
they? And
yeah,
they try to work out their sleep space and
yeah,
find their own comfortable sleep position,
yeah.
which is really great. So all that was perfect timing, right?
Yeah, it worked really well. And
Yeah.
I'm surprised at how well she took to the arms out. I thought there'd be like a few nights, but she loved it. So
And you know why that was, I think, is because she'd given her that week and just that little bit over a week of real consistency and guidance.
Yeah.
Because, and we're going to talk in a minute about you know, why you contacted me again and what was happening with Sienna beforehand and how things were going. But you know, you getting that advice and then feeling confident to guide her and being really consistent. What you did was you guided her so she knew what sleep was and what sleep looked like and what going to bed looked like, and so she became really familiar with her cot and her surroundings. And so then that developmental shift of her rolling, which usually gets in, and that's natural for it to get in the way of their sleep and disturb them or make it hard for them to go to sleep. She already had that foundation and that guidance, and she really felt comfortable in the cot, and then just used her newfound skills, had a bit of an unsettled night, but then, you know, used that and actually found it easier to then, you know, keep to the routine and to be familiar with that guidance. So, yeah, I think it was good timing, right?
It worked well, and I think she's liking being able to suck her hands as well, because as soon as the hands were out, they're like they were straight in the mouth. So
yeah, 4 to 5 months is a great learning time because it's all coming together in terms of their development, and they can control their movements. That sort of startle reflex and all of those things are going away. And so if we guide them and teach them consistently during that period of time. So the peak time or the perfect time, I think, to start guiding our babies is between 3.5 and 5 months old. That's like the peak learning time where it's all going from reflexes and just, you know, they've got no control over anything to learned behaviors. And when we guide them consistently, they learn and they don't know any different. So, you know, 4 to 5 months is a great time to start guiding your bub. So Sienna was, she wasn't 4 months old yet. She was what, 3.5 months when we spoke?
I think about 3.5. Yeah.
And what was happening? So why did you contact me?
So she was waking up, like she was doing cat naps all through the day, and I wouldn't have minded really if I just had her, but because I have Harrison as well, I was struggling to juggle both of them, and it was like stressing me out. And then through the night she was waking up quite a bit as well, so I was exhausted in the day, and then she was only doing half-hour sleeps, and then I could not get her back to sleep for the life of me. It was like stressful. And then Harrison was like running around the house, and I'm trying to settle her, and it was just a bit of a disaster. So then like my husband and I were like, we're gonna call Jen again and book her in because we needed to make a change. So
did you have the book from Harrison the first time?
Yes.
And did you refer back to that with Sienna?
So we definitely tried doing it on our own, just like by following the guide and all the cues and everything. But then we all got COVID. So then I was holding her and rocking her to sleep, and it sort of got her into a bit of a bad habit.
How old was she when that happened?
I think it was like maybe 2 or 3 weeks before we spoke to you for the first time. And then we were sick for maybe like, I don't know, she was unsettled for maybe 5 days altogether. And then I was like trying to put her back into that routine, and I was just struggling. So then
was she around 10 weeks at that time?
I stopped, it would have been maybe just after 10 weeks.
Okay, yeah. So catnapping, when did the catnapping start? Did it start before the COVID, or was that the start of?
It was before the COVID, and that's when I tried to start to sort of implement the WOTBaby routine.
Around 8 weeks?
Yeah, I think it was 8 or 9 weeks, and then she was doing really good for maybe 3 days, and then she started the catnapping.
Yes, absolutely. So catnapping, again, this is all the development stuff, and she's right on cue. So around 8 weeks. It can start earlier, 6 to 8 weeks, but 8 weeks, 8, 9 weeks is when it peaks, and they just wake up to the world, and they're more affected by the stimulation around them, and those circadian rhythms, you know, are secreting more melatonin at night and adrenaline in the morning and during the day. All of those things start to happen. So catnapping is a really normal stage of development around that time. And of course, over tiredness. You could see that playing a big role, and that sort of vicious cycle of no restorative sleep at night, and because the stimulation comes from within, so they're becoming more aware of their surroundings, and they're starting to lose their reflexes and gain more control over their movements, but still really don't know how to coordinate things. So they feel this stimulation within, which can and then their sleep starts to change, and it's just they're a little bit more wakeful when they become aware at nighttime. So that restorative sleep gets less and less, and then the catnapping is normal, overstimulation, and then the whole cycle starts again. When you have, second or third babies, and you've got these little people around you, I get it all the time, mum sort of saying, I know what I need to do, but there's so much noise, and I'm worried about the little one, and they follow me in, and how can I get the baby into a routine and do sleep guidance if I've got the toddler with me?
Yeah.
And it's noisy. And then, in your circumstance, the family got COVID. You would have been super worried about that, I'd imagine. So you had a lot going on.
Yeah.
Little people are busy, right? So I think you know what you need to do, but your mind is just full of noise, and you're trying to care for your toddler, and then your hormones are raging. And I've talked about, as a new mum, when your baby's little, we're controlled by this little gland in here that, when our baby cries, we sort of go into that fight or flight mode.
Yeah.
Without even controlling it. It's a hormone thing. It's a normal part of being a new mum. So when all that's going on, you're tired, you've got a toddler, you've been sick, it's like, and it's really hard to find your rational brain, I think. So obviously, because you'd spoken to me before, you knew what you kind of needed to do.
Yeah.
So how did you feel? Like you kind of knew what you needed to do, but just did you not have a starting point?
I think like I sort of was like implementing the routines, but like as I spoke to you with this time around, I think I was getting in my own way.
Right.
No, I think I need to go in, and then I'd go in, and she was probably like just starting to wind down, but I'd go in and like interrupt her and like pat her and be like, it's okay. And then I'd walk out. And even though I'd like wait certain time frames, like thinking I was doing the right thing, I think I shouldn't have gone in. And like it would just wake her back up. And then also Harrison would follow me in and be like, Sienna, like try and pat the cot with me, like thinking he was helping. And then she was all awake, and then she'd have to like restart all again. And it just became like too much to be spending so much time in the room while I've got Haz running around with me. So I think I just became a bit overwhelmed. And then like I knew she was capable of doing it, but I just think I needed a bit of a confidence boost and like push in the right direction.
And so then after we spoke, obviously we spoke about the routine, we spoke about what you needed to do, what the things that you could control in terms of eliminating things to make it easier for Sienna to find sleep. So how did you? So you've gone from this crazy, going in and Harrison running around and sort of giving up. How did you change things? What did you do?
Well, we got rid of the dummy, like you said.
On day one?
Yeah, we just cold turkey. And then it took her maybe like, I don't know, 3 days to sort of adjust, because I think I was plugging the dummy in too much to help her get to sleep.
Yeah.
We also changed the flow teat of the bottle to help her like take longer to feed, so that way she had like a longer time in between sleeps. And then if she was happy, like you said, if she was happy when I put her down, then I could just leave her. And whereas before I'd just keep going in, I'd go for like 10 minutes and I'd keep going in, whereas this time I put her down and I knew she was happy, so I just left her.
So how did you know she was happy? What was different like from then, like as before? What were you thinking when you were putting her down beforehand?
So before I think she was so overtired that she was constantly whinging when I put her down, because I wasn't like following the right awake times, and I wasn't doing active play and then quiet play. So she was a bit too stimulated when I put her down, and she was like whinging and crying, and I'd put her down and be like, oh, I need to go back in because she's still crying. Or whereas this time she was happy, I'd wrap her up and she was all happy, and then I'd put her down and she'd whinge a bit, but it was like she was completely different. Like she was a lot more content when I put her down. And then obviously she'd start crying and wind herself up a bit, but then you could hear it like changing her cries. So I was like, felt a lot more confident after I spoke to you.
How did you think? Like, obviously, before when she was unsettled and you were in this vicious cycle, did you feel like when you put her down, were you questioning? Were you going, are you tired enough?
Yeah.
Are you still hungry? Have you got pain? And so then now, when you put her down, what are you thinking?
Well, before I was like, every time I'd put her down, I'm like, she must have wind. So I'd want to pick her up or like burp her, or I'm like, maybe like she's not too tired yet, or maybe she's overtired and I need to like rock her. And I just like a million questions were like going through my head. Yeah. So then now, like I'd put her down, I knew she was happy. Like I'd burped her, she'd had a bottle like half an hour before she needed to go to sleep. So I knew she was fine. She had a fresh nappy. So I put her down, and then it was just a different process, and I felt like more confident leaving her because I knew she didn't poo, I knew she didn't need a burp, I knew like there was just mind was in a different place, I think.
And you find going into like taking her into the room to pop her into bed, you're going in there with a little bit more confidence, and you've kind of checked off a list in essence. And how I've kind of created and structured the routine is not to have a perfect routine or to have that perfect formula that's going to make your baby sleep. It's more a formula to help mum or mum and dad to throughout the routine, even when you get the baby up from the last nap, for you to start then with your rational brain, start to eliminate the things like saying, well, right, she might not have slept well for the last nap, so I'm going to, shorten that active playtime. You're separating the feed so Bub's not associating, and then you've looked at the feed and slowed the feeds down, and then with quiet play you can be aware of Bub and how she's behaving, so she's nice and relaxed. You change a nappy, and so the routine is designed to empower you and to help you to make those rational decisions. So when you do put her down, you put it down with confidence. You go, well, I've checked off the checklist. So then at times when she is unsettled and she has her whinges, and I'm sure she's not perfect, right?
She does have days.
Perfect. They have their days and they have their moments, and particularly in the evening if there's lots going on. But when she is a little bit unsettled, how do you feel? Do you look at it differently than you did before?
I think I just like now since we've started, like I just, like you said, I just have more confidence. So even if she is a bit more overtired, or we've been out and she hasn't had a great day's sleep, like I still know, I'm like, I know you can get there and you know how to get to sleep. So I just have more confidence to be able to put her down and know she'll get there. Whereas before, like I was like, oh, she hasn't slept well today, maybe I need to give her like longer cuddle, or I need to do this or do this, and then it would just go around in my head and I didn't really know what I was doing. Whereas it's nice to sort of have that guide and know I've checked those boxes and I can put her down and she's going to go to sleep.
Yeah. And you find you're following you're leading her rather than you trying to follow her prompts.
Yeah. Like and she sort of expects things now as well. Like she knows when she wakes up, like when I first spoke to you, she woke up when I was talking to you, and she was whinging, and I was like, oh, she must be hungry. Like I'll quickly feed her. Whereas now she wakes up, she doesn't whinge. She's like a lot happier, but she knows the bottle's coming. So it can be longer than what she normally would wait, but she knows it's coming. So she's happy to just sit there, and I'll give her a bottle, and then she sort of knows that that's like quiet playtime. And then she sort of just like follows the guide way herself. In that scene now. So
it's amazing. And some people might say, and I don't know if you've heard it, but I've heard it, that babies stop crying if you do sleep guidance or control crying, or we call it sleep guidance because that's what it is, or cry it out, and those things, that if we do those things with our babies, that they're going to stop crying because they feel as though you're not responding to them, so they feel detached. And we hear these things quite often. In your experience with the changeover within that first few days and all the things that you changed, and then you started guiding her, and I'm guessing she cried for the first couple of days.
Cried a lot.
Yeah. And so how do you find that experience? Would you say that now she's doesn't cry and just does what you say because she feels like she's been left too long? Or
I think she's like honestly so much happier. Like even if she was crying, like you can tell the difference as a mom. Like if it's a bad cry, if they're in pain, or if it's just like a whinge and they just need to sort of get it out to get to sleep. And like the first few days were hard, like I'm not gonna lie, it was hard hearing her cry, but I knew that she wasn't in pain. Like it wasn't a cry because she was freaking out because I'd left the room. Like she just, like you said, she just needed to wind down. Like she was either overtired or overstimulated in those first few days, and she just needed to get there. But it was hard listening to her. I just back myself, I put her down, but like it only took a few days and she got into the rhythm, and I don't feel like she's like detached or anything. Like she's still so affectionate and happy and smiley, and like she still is the same baby, but she's just happier and rested.
Happier. Exactly, because those first couple of days is really about, because they're so overtired, it's about winding them down and sort of bringing them back down to a level through, and it's not just through the sleep guidance and the crying bit in the cot, because it's quite short-lived and it's only for a short window of time that you're guiding them. But it's also about the routines, about all of it put together, right?
Yeah.
It's all of it put together. And then, bubs learn to trust and they learn to know what's coming next. And
I definitely see that with her. Like, even though the first few days she did cry a lot, but she'd still wake up so happy because she'd had a good sleep. So it's not like she woke up and was miserable. She'd wake up in the cot, and even now, like sometimes I don't even know she's awake. Like she's just playing in the cot, sucking on her hands.
And before you did this?
Before, she would scream. She'd wake up and just be screaming, and her eyebrows would be red and she'd be so unhappy. And then I'm like, oh, like I didn't know what to do. Should I put her back to sleep? Should I get her up? Whereas now, like she has that cot time, even if it's not the full amount of sleep, like she's still happy to just lay around. Yeah,
she's rested.
Yeah,
it's amazing, right? It's really amazing. And 4 to 5 months onwards, 4.5, 5 months onwards, they really, and I say it all the time, our happy, healthy babies, we've worked really hard for 4 to 5 months, establishing feeding, making sure that they're, they're well fed, they're in a beautiful, loving environment, they're developing, they're happy and healthy. Really, we're going to ask, why are they crying when they're, when we ask them to go to sleep?
Yeah.
So I think the routine helps us to work those things out. And just one more question, which I'm sure will help lots of mums, because it's hard with a toddler and a baby, right? As I said, you get really busy in the head. You've got lots to do. How do you, and obviously our toddlers can't just stop, and we can't just stay at home with the bub and put them to bed for every cot time. We have to get back out and about. So how have you found juggling? You did speak a little bit about it before, but juggling that, going out and about, and her naps and her routine.
Well, now I'm definitely, like, as time's gone on, like I'm a lot more confident. If she doesn't get a good sleep when we're out, when we come home, I just make sure we stick to that routine. And then like some days, like I'm not gonna, like you said, I'm not just gonna sit at home like every day. So if we go out, I put her in her pram, and then she just gets whatever sleep she gets. If it's not full time, that's fine. But I stick to sort of like wake windows, and when we come home, we'll follow that same routine, and she'll go to bed and she's fine. Like she might be a bit whingy, but she'll still get to sleep and she'll still have better sleep. So she's just used to being in that sort of routine, whereas like when we come home, she's happy to just go to bed like she would normally. She might be a little bit overtired, but
and that's the thing. But they know, once they know, sleep guidance is about teaching our babies what going to bed looks like and giving them the skills so that whether they're undertired, although there's no such thing as undertired. I think
Yeah.
happy and rested in the cot, but undertired, overtired, overstimulated, going through a development shift, sleep regression, whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
Any of these things, if we've guided our bub and shown them what bedtime looks like and how to self-settle and how to self-resettle, they're able to achieve that.
Yeah.
Whether you pluck them from a room full of people and party environment, or, you know, you follow the routine that we suggest and give them quiet playtime and ease them to bed. But once you've taught them how to sleep, and it's a consistent thing in their little world,
Yeah.
then they know what to do when you pop them into bed. So does she sleep in the pram? When you're, my baby's never slept in the pram when we're out and about.
She doesn't love it. She I think she just like she's really used to, loves her cot now. But if we're out, like if I can tell that she's tired, I'll put her in and I'll just close it, make it all dark, and I'll put the white noise, like a little portable one, and she'll go to sleep for maybe like 45 minutes or something. She won't do huge sleeps, but she'll still get there and just get like that little power nap in, so she's not grumpy. But yeah, she doesn't love the pram. So
my baby's never slept either, and I find it a really common thing that when we guide our bubs and show them what their cot time looks like, they don't sleep so well when they're out. But the offset to that is that they sleep really well at nighttime, and that's the thing. We want to guide our bubs so unless they're sick, they consistently sleep through the night. And I'm not talking about just being out cold and sleeping.
Yeah.
Being able to merge in and out of their sleep cycles and have a settled night.
Yeah.
So if our babies can do that, they cope with the day, right? And the busyness of having a toddler and all the rest of it. Yeah. So I found my bubs coped really well, even when they didn't sleep.
Yeah.
Do you find she still sleeps well at night regardless?
Yeah, she has had a snotty nose. Harrison brought it home from school, and I do notice around like 4 a.m. she'll toss and turn and like have a little bit of a whinge, but then she just goes back to sleep.
Because 4 a.m. is the lightest sleep of the night, right?
Oh, okay.
Talk about that.
Probably.
Yeah, so just so you know, so as she's going through her little development shift now, that they can be a little bit more wakeful at night around this age.
Yeah.
And their sleep, so you'll find a light sleep, one of the really light sleeps is between 8 and 9 p.m. That's why babies who are overtired sometimes don't go to sleep until after that sleep cycle.
Yeah.
And the next sort of lightish sleep that's quite easy for them to resettle into is around 2 a.m.
Yeah.
And then between 4 and 5 a.m., this is what people say their babies are early risers. They're not really. They're just, that's the lightest sleep of the night. And they then resettle into the most restorative part of sleep before we actually all do this as humans, and then we wake up for the day ready, charged after that little hit of restorative sleep. So our babies really need that. So you often find babies are often fed around 4 or 5 a.m. and then they go back to sleep.
Okay.
And then they wake up, around 6 or 7. But they don't. Older babies, when they feed well during the day and get their calories, they don't need to be fed at that time. Yeah. They're not waking because they're hungry. They're waking because they all wake at that time.
Yeah.
And little Sienna has, through your guidance, learnt how to, even when she's a little bit more wakeful or there's something bothering her, she then has a skill set to roll back over, knowing it's not uptime.
She did have a few days where she was doing, and I didn't even think, but she had a few days where she was getting up at like 4:30. I wouldn't get her up. I'd leave her. Sometimes I'd have to do like a quick move and pat her and walk out, and then she'd go back to sleep till like 7:30. Yeah. That makes sense.
You know what? that was your sleep regression. That was Sienna's sleep regression, and that is how little it affected her and how little it should affect them. It's not like a huge, cyclone that comes through that, keeps our babies awake for hours on end, or it shouldn't be. It's just that babies will be more noisy or wake or be awake for a little while longer. And then, of course, if they're used to all these things to help them back to sleep, we're going to scream the house down and ask for them quite often. But you taught Sienna how to just roll over and put herself. So she's still going to wake and wake often, or be awake when she's busy for a while. But when she's ready, she just puts herself back to sleep.
Yeah.
And you taught her that.
Yes. Well, she I think like with this guy, like a few of my friends are actually pregnant at the moment, and I was like, you need to sort of read this just because it like is such a big help, because I think even like as a first time mum, I didn't know about this until Harrison was like a bit older, around 4 or 5 months, which was when we called you. But I wish that we sort of read it from the beginning, because it's like you go in blind when you're a first time mum, and like just having that guide, you don't have to, like, even not following the cried out from day dot, but like understanding like awake times and quiet play, active play, all that just makes such a difference. So like I wish I sort of read into it a bit earlier, but we got it was good.
Exactly, because it's not a hard-nosed kind of guide to force them into a routine early, but it's about showing you and guiding you how you can implement the foundations and understand your baby's behaviors, and understand and be prepared and know what to expect as they change and develop, and how then you need to change the way you communicate with them and what you're doing. So it's not a guide to force routine and things. It's a guide to guide you, to guide them as they grow and develop, so that when they're old enough, like Sienna's age, they thrive on their little routine that you've created. So
definitely. Yeah, I see such a difference in her from like before. I was like, she's just not a happy baby, like she's just unsettled. But now since she actually sleeps, and like she's I could just leave her on the floor and she'll happily sit there, no thing, and she's happy when she wakes up, and it's just it's made such a difference.
Much easier, right? Than being a slave to their happiness all day and all night long, thinking that they're crying because something's wrong or that you've missed something, and trying everything. Sometimes we need to take a step back and say, well, maybe they need to just sleep.
The juggle is definitely a lot easier now, like with the two of them, now that she sleeps. So
and you look a lot more rested, which is lovely to see. That's really nice.
It's good. A big help.
Well, thank you so much for talking to us, and I'm really happy to hear that Sienna's doing well. And as she changes and develops, you know where we are if you want to check in. And thank you so much.
Thank you.